Spain versus Argentina, a World Cup final. Nobody expected. What happens when the biggest game in football turns into a night nobody wants to remember? A World Cup final is supposed to be the ultimate celebration of football. Millions watching, legends on the pitch, a trophy waiting at the end. But sometimes, a final becomes memorable for a very different reason. In this story, Spain stood on one side, Argentina stood on the other. Two football nations, two different styles, and one World Cup trophy. But what followed was far more controversial than anyone expected. Spain eventually walked away with a 1-0 victory and their second World Cup title. But the scoreline tells only a small part of the story. Because this was not simply a final about who scored the winning goal. It became a debate about how football should be played, how far a team should go to win, and whether winning is still enough when the football itself disappears. From the opening minutes, Spain tried to control the game. They moved the ball, they looked for space, they pushed forward, and slowly they began to take control of the match. Argentina, meanwhile, appeared determined to make the game uncomfortable. They defended deep, they challenged aggressively, and they tried to break Spain's rhythm whenever possible. That approach can work. In football, every team has the right to choose its own strategy. But there is a difference between being physically strong and becoming completely negative. And as the minutes passed, that difference became harder to ignore. Spain continued searching for the opening goal. Argentina struggled to create anything dangerous. The numbers told the story. Spain were creating opportunities. Argentina were barely threatening the Spanish goal. And then came the moment that changed everything. A carefully constructed Spanish attack finally opened a gap in the Argentine defense. The ball reached Ferran Torres. One touch, a quick finish, and suddenly, Spain were ahead. 1-0. The stadium erupted. Argentina now had a choice: continue defending or finally attack, because a World Cup final cannot be won without scoring. And yet, the response was surprisingly slow. The minutes continued to disappear, the pressure increased, but Argentina struggled to produce a serious attacking threat. For a team filled with experienced players, that was becoming increasingly difficult to understand. These were not inexperienced footballers. These were players who had played at the highest level, players who had competed in Champions League matches, players who had won major trophies, players who knew exactly what was at stake. And yet, for long stretches of the final, Argentina simply could not find a way forward. Then came another controversial moment. Enzo Fernandez was already carrying a yellow card. A dangerous challenge followed. The referee showed him a second yellow. And suddenly Argentina were down to 10 men. The situation became even more difficult. Now Spain had the advantage. A goal ahead, a man ahead, and the clock running down. At that point, the final felt almost impossible for Argentina to rescue. But the biggest criticism was not simply about losing. It was about the way they had played. A World Cup final is supposed to showcase the very best of the sport. The skill, the creativity, the courage, the attacking football, the moments that make people fall in love with the game. Instead, this final became dominated by arguments, fouls, delays, physical battles, and constant interruptions. For neutral fans, it was frustrating. They weren't watching a team desperately trying to score. They were watching a team desperately trying to survive. And that raised a bigger question. How much defensive aggression is acceptable? Every great team knows how to defend. Every champion needs players who can fight for every ball. Football is a physical sport. But there is a line. A team can be aggressive without becoming reckless. It can be clever without constantly trying to deceive the referee. And it can fight for victory, without forgetting how beautiful football can be. Spain seemed to understand that balance better on this night. They were not perfect. Their finishing was not always clinical. Some chances were wasted, but they continued trying to play. They continued moving the ball. And they continued searching for another goal. Argentina's approach was completely different. And that contrast became the story of the final. Spain wanted to win by controlling the football. Argentina appeared more interested in controlling the chaos. And eventually, the chaos consumed them. There was another controversial element surrounding the final. Some fans questioned whether the tournament organizers and football authorities wanted a particular storyline. A defending champion, a global superstar, a historic opportunity. Football loves stories. It loves heroes. It loves dramatic endings. But accusations and theories are not the same thing as evidence. And regardless of what people believed before the match, the result on the pitch was clear. Spain had scored, Argentina had not. And Spain were the team lifting the trophy. That is what ultimately matters. But the controversy will remain, because football is not only about the final score, it is also about how you reach that score. Think about the greatest finals in history. People remember extraordinary goals, brilliant saves,
Impossible comebacks, players producing moments of genius under incredible pressure. Those are the memories that survive for decades. But this final may be remembered differently. It may be remembered as the night when one team tried to play, while the other spent too much time trying to stop the game from becoming a game. And that is why Spain's victory feels significant. They didn't simply defeat Argentina. They defeated the chaos. They stayed focused. They kept searching for football. And when their opportunity arrived, they took it. One goal, one trophy, one historic night. Spain had now won their second World Cup. For Argentina, the defeat raised serious questions. What happened to the team that had once been so dangerous in attack? Why did so many talented players fail to create opportunities? And why did a team with so much experience look so uncomfortable when they needed to chase the game? These are questions that will continue to be debated. But perhaps the biggest lesson is much simpler. Football is not only about finding ways to avoid losing. Sometimes, you have to take the risk of trying to win. Because when you spend 90 minutes protecting yourself from defeat, you may eventually discover that you have forgotten how to win. Spain took that risk. They attacked. They controlled possession. They created opportunities. And eventually, they found the one moment they needed. Argentina waited for their opportunity. But the opportunity never came. And when the final whistle sounded, Spain were world champions. The players celebrated. The trophy went into the air. The second star was coming to the Spanish shirt. And somewhere around the world, millions of football fans were left asking the same question. Was this one of the worst World Cup finals ever? Or was it simply an example of two completely different philosophies colliding on football's biggest stage? You decide. Because football is not always beautiful. Sometimes it is messy. Sometimes it is controversial. Sometimes the team with the most talent doesn't win. And sometimes, the team that simply keeps believing is the one that makes history. Spain came to the final looking for their second World Cup. They leave as champions. Argentina came looking to defend their crown. They leave with questions, and perhaps that is the cruelest part of football. You can prepare for years. You can build an incredible